Welcome all you lovely people to another r/malicious compliance video. Before we get into the stories today, I want to announce and remind you guys that I'm randomly giving away a $20 Amazon gift card to one lucky viewer that comments on any videos I upload this week on both Storytime and Storytime. That means for your best chance to win, you'll want to leave as many comments as you'd like on each video we've uploaded this week on both Storytime and my second channel Storytime. So best of luck! Our first story of the day is by Gromulux. Parent says it's not our business what her son does on the community garden, so we let him get up to his neck in crap. Literally. Happened just a couple of hours ago. This story is so fresh you can still smell it. On our community garden, we get teams of kids from the local school coming to help, and it's often the case that they turn up on a Saturday morning as well. They're almost entirely well-behaved, which is a good job as there's not a lot we can do about bad behavior beyond a stern voice. Although one time a lad kicked one of our rabbits, so a girl brained him with a shovel. Rough but effective justice. There's this one lad who came for the first time last week. Don't know him, but we made him very welcome. He only lasted half an hour before storming off in tears after his third telling off for spinning round and round holding a tool and then letting it fly off at head height. This morning, his mum, I assume, came with him. I saw him point out my friend and me, but he didn't ask to join in, so after shouting hello, we let them be. After about 10 minutes, he started wandering, and my friend shouted to him, "Don't go round behind the greenhouse, mate. It's not safe round there." Well, his mom had obviously been waiting for this because she went 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat, demanding to know, do we own this garden? And if not, what business is it of ours where her son goes? We explained we just want him to be safe, and she replied that she's quite capable of taking care of that herself, thank you. Fine, on you go. Off he went, exploring behind the greenhouse, which is not safe, because it's the compost heap, which is very unstable, and the muck mound, which is a giant pile of horse manure we get delivered every autumn. By the spring, the inside is all nice and rotted down, and the outside is hard, crusty, and less strong than you think. After a minute, there was a crunch, a squeal, and I think we did very well to drag him out without saying, "I told you so," or breaking into guffaws. He was absolutely black from chest height downwards, and although well-rotted manure doesn't smell really bad, it is very thick and sticky and slimy. His mom grabbed him without a word, and they headed for the gate. He started bawling as soon as the surprise wore off. My friend said, "Would you like some bin bags to spread out in your car?" And to her credit, she did say thanks when we handed them over. I wonder if we'll see them again next week. Be honest, if you found yourself in an OP situation and you tried to warn them that there's, well, a pile of poop behind the greenhouse, and they just completely disregard everything you say, would you be silently hoping that they got to know that pile of poop? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Life at Moonlight. No overtime allowed, and constantly invade my personal time? Okiedokie. I still work for the same company, so I'll be semi-vague with the specifics. Years ago, I had a boss that was interesting. He was usually a decent guy to be around, and was just good at some of the particulars of the job. But when it came to the day-to-day stuff, he was just clueless, and/or admittedly didn't care about pitching in, since he knew everyone else could cover it. When he wasn't busy or was stressing about something, he really liked just hanging around and chit-chatting, even if we were very busy, or in my case, on my lunch break. I'd asked him repeatedly not to come find me on my breaks, which I took outside, and talked my ear off as it's the only personal time I get in the day, and I'd really rather not be bothered by anything work-related during. It's important to note that every position in the company below his is hourly. At this point, I was a few steps down the ladder from his position. During one of these interruptions, he mentions an unpleasant call he just had with his boss, and asks if I want to hear about it. I told him no, not particularly. I'd like to finish eating, go for a walk, and read for a bit. Then when I come back, clock in, and I'm an actively working employee, I'd be game to talk about it as much as you'd like. Even when he was either grating on our nerves or making inappropriate jokes/comments. One thing I'll give him is that we could show some frustrations by making direct comments like that, and he'd actually take the hint. Sort of apologize and back off. By the time I came back from break, he'd gathered all the FT staff and made a show of how I made them wait. Then he goes on a tirade about overtime and how we're not to get a minute of it going forward. This is immediately after his demand we all work open to close for the last 2 weeks during our busy season, which is roughly 12 to 13-hour days. Exhausting? Yes, but I relied on that OT for years. We have multiple busy seasons a year to put into savings, as the pay otherwise was okay-ish. He also routinely asks me to stay a bit past my scheduled time to help with things, so already, I'm thinking this could mean I'll be able to make up the potential overtime by leaving early on Fridays. Cue malicious compliance. Going forward, I start ending my lunch breaks, usually an hour, the moment either he or anyone else finds me for a work-related question. I'll walk back inside, clock in, and then discuss whatever they'd like. I'd then say I'm taking my paid 15 to 20 minute break to go finish my food and take a shorter walk, and wouldn't clock back out again to finish the actual unpaid hour break, since it was interrupted. HR violation, which I documented. I'd always stay after my shift was supposed to end if he or anyone else needed a hand. I was good friends with the delivery folks on our route, and they'd start coming later and later to do our pickups to help me pad out my time and claim traffic was getting so bad in the area, since they all thought he was a jerk anyway, and I was ostensibly put in charge of deliveries and pickups for some reason. By Thursday evening, I'd look at my timesheet and calculate when I need to leave the following day to avoid any OT, which I'd make sure everyone was aware of so there'd be no surprises. Of course, they were always surprised when I'd abruptly end a conversation or stop helping a customer, etc., and just pack up and walk out the door. It got to the point where I'd show up at 7, I was the opening manager, this is retail, no one else would show up until 8:30 to 9, and then I'd be leaving around 10 a.m. Eventually, I stopped coming in on most Fridays at all and told the boss he'd have to open, as I wasn't willing to come in for literally 1 hour before leaving again, and as I'm well beyond meeting what I need to do to keep FT status, I'd just lose that hour, or stay extra late the night before if need be to hit 40 on the dot. It got to a point where he initiated a conversation involving HR on my leaving so early on days we need OP, and how I was abusing the system. When the HR rep said this was a fairly serious allegation and what I had to say in response, I pulled out my notebook with daily breakdowns showing what I actively did during chunks of time, including timestamps for beginning to end, interrupted lunch breaks, and the content of the interruption, extra projects put on me, and how that extended my day, etc. They looked it over for all of 3 to 4 minutes before sighing, handing it back, and telling me I could go. Ironically, right after the meeting ended, I had to rush to go clock out, or I'd have been on overtime and left. That Monday, my boss tries to play it off like I got away with it once, but don't try it again, but is being very cautious regarding asking for help, for things that are his direct responsibility anyway, and only came out one further time to talk to me on lunch before seeing my notebook next to me and sheepishly walking away. The overtime ruling came and went for years, so I'd either keep mysteriously racking up extra time to leave early, delayed pickups for our shipments, or would work open to close of my own choosing when they randomly decided they didn't care about overtime for a few months. Either way, I was never bothered regarding how I fluctuated with my schedule again. Honestly, I think the greatest thing here is not only were you playing exactly by the books and making sure you didn't get overextended, what OP did ended up making the boss realize, you know what, maybe I shouldn't waste their time with whatever story I want to tell them while they're trying to enjoy their lunch. worked out in multiple ways. And our final story of the day is by Kono Kermit Da. My boss told me to find another job, so I did, right when they needed me most. Back when I was still working in HR, I got a great job offer. This was a publicly funded company with huge cultural impact, really the definition of an institution. Everyone who learned I worked there couldn't help but to feel slightly amazed at the discovery. Some people even rudely implying I had friends in the right places. Never mind, I was a recently graduate, clueless young man with nothing to my name. This was my first real job too, not counting internships or smaller summer jobs. As such, I really tried my best to be helpful and kind to everyone on my first year there. And maybe that's why I became a target. After I secured a permanent contract with them, with incredibly crappy pay and no benefits at all, I might add, one particular coworker got pretty salty about my position in the office. Although for all intents and purposes, I was still beneath pretty much everyone there. This culminated in getting a call from this person 30 minutes after I had left work, asking about a pile of papers she couldn't find. I remembered I had actually kept those papers on my desk and tell her to look there. I apologized profusely and ask her if she wants me to go back to help her deal with it. She simply says no and that everything is all right. Now, this was the type of coworker that always did the bare minimum and still whined about it at every chance she had. I never thought much of it. After all, she was a mom and as such, she was probably pretty tired all the time. But I never thought she would turn on me because she had to stay at work for 30 more minutes looking for a pile of papers. Half the time, I would have to stay 1 or 2 hours after work to deal with my workload, so I thought it was no big deal. The next day, I again apologized to my coworker, but immediately noticed something wasn't quite right about the way she was acting with me. Throughout the day, I noticed her going out of the office with coworkers, sending them messages and letting out these poisonous little laughs to herself every time I opened my mouth to say anything. From that day on, this was one of the people that decided to make my life a living heck. I made some friends in this place too. Some of them became really great friends that I still hang out with and treasure to this day. But for the most part, it was an absolute heckhole. Here are some of the things that I experienced over my 3-year stay. Got one of the most important people in the company publicly shaming me for participating in an interview wearing sneakers. Keep in mind that no dress code was defined for the interview or any other corporate event, and I had always worn sneakers. A sadistic manager who, on good days, would talk crap about everyone she had to work with, and on bad days would downright bully and verbally assault me in front of other coworkers. A coworker who would often raise rumors about me based on nothing. The same who turned on me because of 30 extra minutes on the job. A coworker who, for no good reason, sprayed me and my friends with a fire extinguisher, and HR who refused to do anything about it, etc. I don't pretend that I was the perfect worker. I mean, it was my first job. I made a ton of mistakes and probably pissed a lot of people off. But I'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who could deal with this toxic workplace and keep their mental stability. All of this pushed me to a point of near nervous breakdown, and one day, I just couldn't take it anymore. It's a day just as any other. At some point after lunch, I come back into the office to find my coworker sitting at her desk all by herself. Weird, I thought. She usually came back from lunch way after I did. Obviously sulking, she acknowledges my presence by immediately accusing me of hiding papers to prevent her from doing her job. Keep in mind, it's been almost 3 years since she called me after work hours, and our relationship soured. This day would be the climax of that seething hatred we had both cultivated for one another. I shrug and tell her I have no idea what she's talking about. Never seen such papers and certainly have nothing to do with the situation. I sit down, also pissed now, but ready to move on and not waste any more time on this subject. My manager comes in and notices something has happened. The tension is palpable. Before she has the chance to ask what's up, my coworker pipes up. Well, you see, what's happening is that OP is a liar. What? In all of my 3 years there, I never raised my voice, never talked back, never shown a hint of defiance until that very freaking moment. I can't deal with anyone calling me a liar. It's one of the things that makes me go absolutely insane with rage. I immediately cut her off and tell her how much of a toxic witch she is. I wasn't nice or even professional about it, and I really don't regret it. I didn't use any swear words, but I was definitely very personal about the way I responded. I can see their surprise. They never thought I would fight back. They expected me to take it and shut up forever. Things go downhill from here for me. My witch of a coworker gets transferred somewhere else, but I'm told I have to undergo behavioral training. For the first time in years, I'm not taking crap, and I let my manager know I'm not interested. I had been humiliated for 3 years and finally stood up for myself. I wasn't going to be punished for that. My boss calls me to her office, began asking weird questions like, "Are you happy here?" and "What do you want to do in the future?" I told her about my grievances and how toxic this work culture is. In no uncertain terms, she tells me, "You know, we have to renew your contract soon, but if you're not happy here, I would find a job somewhere else." What? I had given this company some of the best years of my youth. I worked for them day and night, going the extra mile even when they didn't ask me to, for what amounted to be a little more than minimum wage. Their payback? Punishing me for standing up for myself once. Well, the problem for them is I had been learning how to program while working. I would get off work late in the evening, go home and drag my exhausted body to my laptop to study up to 4 or 5 hours of coding. I realized I really liked coding. Like, a lot. Unbeknownst to them, I had began taking small coding projects for no pay, as having other paid jobs was forbidden in this company, and soon I was thinking of launching a career as a web developer. My contract ended, and I expected to receive a call in 1 or 2 weeks to come by and sign the new contract. This was the usual process for workers like me. Weeks go by, and I honestly believe they just decided to not hire me back. Didn't bother me after all. I was already looking for a new job before my contract was even over. 3 months later, I get a call from my manager. "Hi OP, how are you? Listen, we got your new contract here. Why don't you come by to sign it? If you sign it today, we can have you back by Monday." She goes on to tell me how much work there's been lately and how they really need me back ASAP. All the projects I had worked on were halted because no one else wanted to work on them. A quarter of a year after they dropped me with no word of hiring me back. At this point, however, I was getting plenty of interviews for IT companies who were genuinely interested in my skills and portfolio. "Thank you, I'm not coming back." The silence on the other end of the call was so sweet. My manager asked me to pass by anyway. She would like a word with me, and I still had my personal belongings at my desk. I agreed, figuring this was the only chance I'd have to stick it back to them after 3 years of abuse. She sat me down with a disgustingly saccharine attitude that she would seldom display while I was working for them. The whole meeting was essentially a desperate attempt to bring me back into the company, and me refusing it at each turn. "That's okay," she said. "What are you going to do then?" I told her I'd work as a programmer. My reply is met with laughter. I remained silent. "That's good," she continued. "I'm sure you can do it, but you know, I would seriously consider staying with us." I reiterate I'm not interested and even let her know I'm moving away in a couple of months. Again, she laughs at me. Apparently my plans for the future were so extraordinarily out of my reach in her opinion that she just couldn't help but to laugh. Just a last little slap on my face. Finally, she asks, "Why would you want to leave us?" I shrugged, unable to contain my smile. "You people told me to get a job if I wasn't happy here. I'm just following your suggestion." Much to my manager's chagrin, I did land a job in web development. And after I left this job because I wanted to immigrate, my employer liked my work so much, he asked me to keep working for them remotely until I found another job in my destination. I've been working as a web developer for 3 years now, and every single day I look back at my previous career and wipe the sweat off my forehead, knowing I dodged a lifetime of misery and abuse. As for my previous workplace, they're still going strong. After all, it is a huge institution and my part in it wasn't that important. But my team was pretty badly hit. Without me, they couldn't perform interviews and keep some of their projects going for a couple of months. The whole thing was hot garbage until they unfortunately hired another clueless recent graduate. But honestly, knowing those people have to wake up and go to work in the heck they have personally created feels like enough of a punishment for me. Hope they find the inner peace they want so badly. Just the fact that you basically told this manager, "I found my passion in web development," and they laugh in your face like that. It's moments like that where the back of your hand really wants to say hi. This took a lot of restraint and patience from OP, and I commend them heavily for that. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.